topsoil screener. I've been getting a lot of topsoil from my local transfer station, and I've been finding that it's got a pretty good amount of some trash and some other stuff in it. So I picked up this spool of small hold fencing here. It's called hardware cloth. And I've got these leftover. These are actually from a bed frame that I've been holding on to for a while. So I'm gonna be making a topsoil screener that will fit on top of this wheelbarrow, so I can shovel the topsoil onto the screener, shake it, and it will fall into the wheelbarrow. So stick around and I will show you step by step on how to do it. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so here's what you're gonna need to build this screener. So you're gonna need whatever gauge screen you want, lumber to make your frame out of, and then as far as tools, you're gonna need a tape measure or even a ruler, pencil. Then I'm gonna be using these GRK Uber grade trim head screws. These ones are 8 by 2 inches. I like these. These are pretty cool because they're not too damaging to the wood. The actual screw is pretty fine, and then the heads you can very easily countersink and they don't splinter the wood because the heads are so small. But they definitely hold just as good as regular screws. These are pretty good. You're gonna need a drill, and you could use the drill for both, but I've got an impact gun as well. And then you're gonna need some optional wood glue just for a little stronger hold. And then I have this Chicago Electric. It's a chop saw miter saw combo. So I'm gonna use this to cut my 45-degree angles to make my framing, and also cut the lengths. I think I got this at Harbor Freight, and it was just over $100, I think, but it's definitely very good. So we're going to measure up some wood, cut it, and I will see you when we start putting stuff together. Okay, so the screen that I got is 24 inches long, or inches wide, you could say. So what you're going to want to do is make your frame, you're going to want to make your frame compensate about 1.5 inches over this so that you have something to hold your wire with. Because if you make your frame 24 by 24, then you're not going to be able to hold your wire. So my wood here is about 2 3/4. So I'll probably have the wire come in about maybe like 1.5 inches, so that it's held nicely and it won't slip out. Okay, so I just cut my 8 boards. You need 4 boards for each side, top and bottom, so that leaves you with 8 boards that you need to cut. I cut these to 24 inches, which is the length of my wire, but then once I cut my 45-degree angle, they're gonna sink into each other. So you're gonna have the wire back about 1 inch or so. So I think that'll work. If it doesn't, then I will shorten it as needed, but I think this will work. I have this pile of scraps now that I can make maybe a handle for the screener out of, so it fits onto the wheelbarrow snugly. But we're going to set the saw to 45-degree angle. So how you do that is, this is a lock. You loosen your lock, and then you can see on here is your dial. So right now it's on 0. So you push this button and then spin it and lock it in at 45, and then crank your lock in so it won't move on you. So now we have our saw set at 45 degrees. I'm gonna lock this in because I don't need it to move. So now it's just a chop saw. So what you would do is line your saw up wherever you want your cut to be. Cut off the end, flip it over and do the same. So we're gonna get all of these cut and see how they line. Okay, so I got all of my sides cut here, 8 pieces. So whenever you are going to cut realistically anything with a pattern that you're making, you always want to use the first piece you cut to make every pattern. Because if I cut this one and then I use it to make this one and then I use this one to make the pattern for this one and I keep going on like that, every part you make is going to be slightly larger and then they aren't going to line up. So you always got to use your original piece to mark all of your angles, otherwise all of your stuff will be the wrong length. So now that I have everything cut, you can quickly see here how it's gonna go. It's essentially the same way you make a picture frame, and you're basically gonna have this, and then the wire is going to go over it like this, and then you'll have your second layer of stuff over it. And I might use these little pieces here, the cutouts, to brace the corners on one side. I'm not sure yet, but we will figure that out afterwards. So because I don't have any like clamps or vices out in the garage, whenever I have to drill pilot holes through 2 pieces, and I don't have like a joint clamp or anything, I like to take one of these little cheapo Harbor Freight clamps, clamp my angle together, and that way I can drill in through both and not have to worry about trying to hold it and drill it and not have it move. So that's a nice little cheap trick to get your angles drilled. Okay, so we got our first side screwed together. So that's basically how it's gonna look, all jointed together. I opted not to use the glue just because I started drilling holes and then I figured I already had it clamped, so I would just put the screws in then. So now I'm gonna make the second one, and I'm definitely gonna put those corners on here because I ended up only putting 1 screw through each side. So then if I put that corner in, I could put a screw into both, and then it would be a lot more secure. So I'm gonna do that with the bottom one, and then I'll put the other side together, and then we will cut open our wire, sandwich it in between, and that'll basically be it. We can make some handles or something afterwards, but yeah, that'll be pretty much it. And then we can test it out, run some dirt through it, and see if it works or not. So we got both of our sides put together. We have the bottom here with our supports, and then the top here without the supports. And it looks like they line up pretty cleanly, so I'd say that's pretty good for not using a square or anything. So we did good. So now we need to open up our roll, cut our length, make sure everything fits good, and then we will run a couple shorter screws, locking the two together and locking our wire in between our 2 sides. And once that's done, we'll make sure that we're good for size on the wheelbarrow, and we will modify if needed. So there's 2 tools that I forgot that you're going to end up needing, and those are a pair of good metal snips and a heavy-duty staple gun. So I got my metal cut out here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to staple along the outside just to hold it in place, and then I will sandwich the 2 frames together with some shorter nails. So we got our mesh stapled down. I got it all around the edges, and I suppose if you didn't have all of the lumber you needed to make both sides, you could definitely just leave it like this and just use it like that. But so now that we have that done, we're going to flip this around and square it up, and we'll put a couple tacks all the way around just to hold this together. And then we'll have pretty much a finished sifter, and we can test it out. So here's the finished product. I ended up putting these scraps from when we cut our main ones on the side, because then when you set it in, it kind of sinks into the side and locks down and gets really stable. So I think this is gonna be pretty good. I've got a bucket of dirt over here that I will grab quickly, and we will give it a quick test. So here's our screener. Here's our compost that I got from the dump. Try and dump it with one hand. So we're gonna pour this on here. We can just pour it all on like that. And now we're just gonna take this, kind of bounce it around like this. It's hard to do with one hand. And I push it all through. Break up, oh, that's a rock. Push it all through here. And you can see all of the rocks and debris and stuff stay on top. And you're left under here with all of this nice fluffy compost. And that is how you make a compost screener or a topsoil screener. And it's pretty easy, just using scraps of wood and so a couple screws. And yeah, I hope you find this useful. And we will see you next time. Make sure you give me a thumbs up. Comment below if you want any measurements that I used or tools that I used. And be sure to subscribe. Okay, thank you.